All right. We're going to be mostly in chapter 2 this morning. I was talking with Sarah on the way here in the car, and just reminded how deeply, badly I need this study personally right now in my life. And she said the same thing. Very, very much so. And I hope each one of us here will feel the same as we go along. And I know some of you have expressed this already. Does anybody know or remember what books of the Bible, approximately how many books of the Bible are sometimes referred to as the wisdom literature? The writings, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. The Hebrews called them that. Jesus just kind of called them the Psalms, almost to summarize all of them, when he said all that's written about me in the law, the Psalms, and the prophets in Luke 24. But yes, those 5 books are the number one place in the Bible where the vast majority of what the Bible would call wisdom comes from. So it's just a little bit of a reminder. We're in Ecclesiastes in our study. I was listening to something just this past week. It had mentioned such a powerful reminder to me, the danger of not, in our personal Bible study, in my personal Bible study, the danger of not regularly studying and having a good understanding of these books in particular will set myself up for major catastrophe when trials come through life. And I think that's really appropriate, especially for this study today. These wisdom books are precious and priceless. Ecclesiastes is no less than. So we're finishing up chapter 1, getting into chapter 2. And we have textual booklets in the back. We'll do the same thing that we did last week. We probably won't do that every week, just change it up here and there. But we're going to take probably about 8 minutes. We're going to go through just the last part of chapter 1 and most of chapter 2. Again, I'm not going to talk. We're all going to work on the text together. There's colored pencils in the back so that you can mark anything that sticks out to you or repeated words or phrases. If you have a question, write that down. The class will not be good if nobody asks their questions. Full disclaimer. Any Bible class where no one's asking questions it's not as good. It's not as fun and edifying to everyone else. So please remember to write those down, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. We'll probably just go through the text. Yes, sir.
Do our visitors have books?
Great. Thank you for the reminder. If you're visiting, Clay, can I volunteer you again? If you just want to raise your hand, Clay can bring you a book. There's colored pencils as well. So we'll go ahead. It's about 9:06. We'll go till about, let's say 9:14. Remember, the first section, the teacher sets up everything that's going to be entailed in the text. Now he's going to expand upon that and go right into it in chapter 1, verse 12, through the end of verse 2, verse 23. I'll be doing it with you. Remember to look for any repeated words and phrases, and especially anything new that he introduces. Maybe 2 more minutes. All right, I don't hear any more writing. We'll go ahead and stop right there. Okay, we're going to look for what you saw in this text. We'll go through, there's roughly about 5-ish, maybe 6 sections. We'll just take them 1, 2, 3 at a time. I'll kind of get the first one set up here to get us going. So chapter 1, verses 12 to 18. So I, the teacher, here we've got Koheleth. He says, basically, let me be Solomon for just a minute. I'm going to go back in time, and I'm going to see through Solomon's eyes. I'm going to do all the things that he did. Here we go. So that again, one of the great things about the teacher, he always cuts to the chase. He gives you the summary, the end result right at the beginning. He doesn't hide it. So what did you see, or what questions do you have here in these last few verses of chapter 1? Verses 12 through 18. Okay, good. Yes. This great search is about to begin. It truly is an amazing search. It's not like what you or I could do. We don't have the means to do what Solomon could do. We don't have the, per se, well, we do because we have the scriptures. But the wisdom that Solomon had, maybe to be able to fully grasp and comprehend things. Sandy.
I just thought it was interesting in verse 18, he says, "For with much wisdom is much sorrow." And you normally wouldn't think that. You would think that I have all this wisdom. You know, I know how to be happy. I know how to overcome all of this sorrow. But it appears like he doesn't. And the term under heaven or under the sun is used a lot. So I'm thinking, you know, if that's all you're looking at, is this earth, under the sun, under heaven. He's right. You can have all the wisdom, but if you're not looking beyond this earth or under this sun, you are going to have sorrow.
Absolutely. Great point again. The preacher is not looking at life lived with eternity in mind or in light of eternity, or I'm going to go before God. He will show that's how we should live, but we're not there yet. That'll be next week. He's looking at under heaven. Specifically, he says that in a really beautiful way to show under the sun, under the heaven, same thing. Everything that can be thought of, done, seen, heard, all there is to know about life here in the world. Good, what else? Yes?
The list of all the things that he does, that he seeks out, the good and the bad, it's all under the sun. He said he's not looking beyond that, he's only looking at stuff here. But his list of things is very complete. It answers all the, yeah, but what about, he answered that too.
It's very thorough search, yes. This isn't just a weekend project or for a couple years. He commits his entire life to this search. Dave, did you? Okay.
If I counted correctly, it was 14 times he mentions the heart or the mind. I apply my heart or I apply my mind. And like you're saying, this is an all-in effort that he is devoting his entire being to discover for the benefit of mankind under the sun.
Good observation. I missed that. What is the unhappy task that God has given man to be occupied? I should say. I apologize ahead of time. Don't get too distracted by the PowerPoint. If it looks confusing, it's confusing to me too. So really the one thing I wanted to put up there was what's up there right now. Couple different translations are kind of helpful here. NIV, what a heavy burden God has laid on man. ESV, God has given people this miserable task to keep them occupied. And then Net Bible, I've concluded God's given people a burdensome. What is that task?
Study wisdom. Acquire it.
Was somebody else about to say something? Oh, yes.
Don't you think it's a result of the fall? And before that, we were basically, everything was done for us and we didn't have any worries or cares, but because of our disobedience, then it's opened this whole door into knowing.
Okay, you're getting at something that's very important, or very, very important. First, look at the text very carefully. Can you see, and I missed it, what is the task that God gave man? What's the task?
I was going to say like a search for fulfillment.
The search to find out all this takes place under the sun. God gives us this task. We didn't have a choice in it. He's made it this way. and he's made it miserable. Interesting. We're going to read again in chapter 3, which will be next week. He's put eternity in man's heart. But man can't find out what happens from beginning to end. So we are all inside of us this strong, urging desire to figure out all that takes place. And there's books and books and books and books, and they'll always keep writing more books to try to figure out everything that's taking place under the sun. Did somebody have something that I missed? Yes.
Maybe not seeing a mix, but is it, along with that same line of thought, the pursuit of what is my purpose? Is that what he's getting at? To try to find a value of what my pursuit will be under the sun.
Great question. I go back to just using purely his own words in chapter 1, verse 3. What does man gain for all his efforts? Verse 10, can anybody say, look, here's something new? So you have this man toiling under the sun for gain. We could say fulfillment, which I think was basically what you're getting at. Purpose, Dave. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, in a way, Solomon, or the author, is the multi-billionaire elite of his time. He had access to all earthly pleasure that he wanted, but yet he finds that it's unfulfilling without God.
Absolutely. Yes.
Just thinking that every time I read this, I can't help but apply the lens of the time, where you have kings and then everybody else. And I would think that everybody else, it's based on your genetics if you're going to be something like in those times, right? I mean, if you're not a king, you're in the caste system, you're an average individual, and you're never going to be a king. And I would think that that would be troublesome for people and discouraging for people at times. But here is a person that says, I was a king, and I had everything, and it wasn't fulfilling. So don't feel that you're chasing after things of this world and frustrated that you can't achieve those, or because I got it all, and it still didn't help me. So that's kind of what I keep thinking through the way, the fact that this teacher has it all is a very impactful point being made to a broad group of people that don't have what they have.
Excellent. I may have missed somebody, but I wanted to push a little more on this unhappy burden that God's given man. Why has God given man this unhappy burden?
I think it's, like I said a few minutes ago, a result of the fall. Because it says back in Genesis, that we didn't even know we were naked until we ate of that fruit. So, we were completely,
Ding, ding, ding.
yeah.
Man has sinned and fallen, and it was not like this. Why else might God have given man this unhappy burden? Absolutely.
Maybe to teach us something about himself. Like suffering, we can understand Jesus better than suffering. To draw us to him.
First, chapter 3 is going to, well, here, just turn to page 6. Look at this. Verse 14. I know all that God does will last forever. There's no adding or taking from it. God works so that people will be in awe of him. Yes. This misery that takes place, this futility, it's so that we'll seek him. Otherwise, if I can find and discover all that takes place and I'm fulfilled, why do I need God? I don't need him. So he makes it such that I cannot find it all and I cannot find true fulfillment here. Any other thoughts on that? Yes.
In Acts 17, it says, Acts 17:27, that they would seek God, perhaps they might grope for him and find him, though he
outstanding. Yeah, God's made it miserable so that we would wake up and stop searching for life under the sun. Jesus' own words, come to me, all you who are weary, heavy laden. I never understood what that meant growing up until far so studying Ecclesiastes. Well, I guess they're weary and heavy burden because they're hungry. What's he talking about? This is exactly what he's talking about. The miserable, burdensome task of seeking and to find fulfillment under the sun. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. Here's the deal. We all have gone on the same search. And if we're not careful, we're doing it right now. Like I was saying on the way here, I need this study so badly. It is a trap to ask more out of this life than what it can give. And it's a dangerous trap. Look at verse 15. What's crooked can't be straightened. What's lacking can't be counted. Now, this one was pretty hard, and I worked on it for quite a while. Any thoughts on this? How would you put this in your own words? Yes.
Isn't this kind of what you've been saying all along in regards to if God's made it such that, you know, if it's inherently, I'm looking up stuff here, inherently flawed, how can it be fixed? Like if he's setting it up in such a way that you're never going to get what you're saying, you're never going to find everything on earth. You're never going to find everything on earth, you know, and it sort of answers itself.
Anything else? Anyone else? Yes, Ryan and then Clay.
I would say that you never fully know what you don't know. So you study a topic and you think that you've mastered the content, but then you realize that there's just more to study. So there's always going to be things. And so what is lacking, it can't be counted. I don't know, but there's still left for me to understand or pursue. And the more that I do learn, the more that I understand I'm lacking in that topic.
I think that's a quote somehow. Differently. Yes, Clay.
I was going to say that we can't generate our own results. It's crooked. You want to make it straight, you can't. If it's not there and you want it to be there, we're not going to be the ones to produce it.
Thank you. I'm glad you touched on that because that brought something back. That is going to be a major theme in Ecclesiastes, trying to straighten out what God makes crooked. God has made life such that it goes every which way. We're going to study chapter 3 next week, and life is going to go all over the place. And the trap that we fall into is thinking, I'm going to straighten it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to live this way. That's not going to happen to me. And unfortunately, that is a fantasy. Solomon already tried that, and it didn't work. It can't be done. And who better to do it than Solomon? He's got all the wisdom, right? And then what else is the best hedge in the world? The best the world's got? Money. He's got all the money. Still couldn't do it. Still can't straighten out his life. Nobody can make straight what God's made crooked. And furthermore, we can sit around and talk about all this. I skipped over the verse 14. He uses this new phrase. It's like grasping the wind. Now, thankfully, we don't have to go to any commentaries or need a degree to figure that out. That is what it is. That's ridiculous, trying to grab the wind. But that's exactly what trying to straighten our lives out is. Just consider for a quick moment, we could talk about this, all the things that are crooked in the world. shout some out if you got some. I put a couple here: taxes, taxes on your profit, taxes on your food, taxes on your house where you live, taxes on your boat and your boat motor and your boat trailer.
Give you a few comments about.
Yeah,
your
right.
business.
I know.
I mean,
It's
criminal,
ridiculous.
it's not crooked, it's criminal, and it's
Same
not of
thing.
God. But anyway, I mean, don't you think that part of this is also, it's not that, it's crooked, we have to like keep in perspective that the crookedness is when you're trying to pursue these things or do these things absent of God.
Perfect.
Because, I mean, God, I believe.
Yeah, not in light of
I
eternity.
See in the scriptures that if you're trying to do it God's way and what He's taught, He will make those crooked roads straight, and He will help you put the pieces together. But this is what happened, but I feel like Solomon is saying this is what happened is when you're not doing it God's way, and you're not involving God and keeping
Right.
them in
He's
order.
gonna, good. He's gonna make it straight because he's gonna lead us through the crookedness. We're guaranteed one thing in this life: death and taxes. God is gonna lead us through the crookedness of this life, and that is the message of Ecclesiastes. Don't try to straighten it. And if you're not careful, you will be absolutely, positively, especially when a trial comes along and you don't have this wisdom, you'll be destroyed. Been there. I think we've all been there. You will be bitter, miserable. You get to your end of your life, and all you can do is it's just that you're never there. That's silly. That's what it comes down to. We have the preacher's message to show us, I tried that, I did that already. Don't do that. Yeah, a lot of ridiculous things. Inflation, losing sleep. I don't know who came up with that. Traffic, things of that nature. Koheleth says you can't straighten those things out. God, you can't beat God. Okay. Next section. Now, the search is going to begin. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. What do you see here?
He begins being very methodical. He's honest with testing himself, his heart. He's going to keep track of, okay, is this going to be fulfilling and satisfying? And then he's going to document, very scientific in his effort.
Thank you. Yes, this is a very legit search. Where's the first place we think of to begin a search for fulfillment? Pleasure. Good times. Let the good times roll. I think we call this live, laugh, love. But the teacher, or Solomon, he's not going through this like Dave said. He's going through this. My wisdom is guiding me. I'm trying to test this out, not living a sinful life, but to test it out to its limits and to see, is there fulfillment gained somewhere? Did anybody have their hand up? Of course, it too turned out to be futile. Read a couple things that are just kind of like, this is basically the best the world has to offer. Here's somebody. There's no such thing as pure pleasure. Some anxiety goes with it. That's nice. A cigarette is the perfect type of pleasure. It's exquisite and leaves one unsatisfied. What more could one want? Perfect. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. The loud, and then about laughter, the loud laugh betrays the empty head. Here's another quote from Solomon himself about wine. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaints? Who has wounds with no cause? Who has redness of eye? Those who linger over wine. Koheleth says, I've tried it, and there's no fulfillment in it. I think we can pick on the teenagers pretty easily here. Their insatiable thirst for mirth and laughter, right? Staying up till 3 in the morning, go, 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 go. But then if you just look at them the next morning, they're just, all their pleasure and mirth is died. And the same holds true for us when these are our pursuits. Was there another hand?
What I think is pretty amazing about this that he's talking about is when you just think about when you're seeking pleasure and you're pursuing pleasure, and especially when you have this endless amount of resources and the money that he had, just what typically, pleasure seeking is a big distraction. And that he was able to, at some point in his life, step outside of that instead of still being caught up in it and distracted and just going on and on and on. He was able to actually step out, break loose for, I guess, I don't know, a moment or maybe the rest of his life. I don't know the exact history behind this, but he was able to break free enough to write this and to be able to reflect and, I believe, be inspired by the Lord to get this message out. Because you just think of just how just money, and especially when you have endless amounts of money, you can just go on and on until death.
Possibility, the writer does not identify himself by name. He just calls himself the preacher. But also another possibility, and good observation, another possibility, you have this person writing possibly in post-exilic times when the nation is at one of their worst. And if you look at the way he says this, verse 12, I was king. It's like, dun, 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 I was king back in Solomon's day. Verse 16, I amassed wisdom before all those who were before me, which is kind of a weird thing for Solomon to say, because who was before you in Jerusalem? Your dad, that's about it. But all the kings before me, same thing in verse 16, and then 2 verse 9. I became great, I surpassed all who were before me. So he's got the weight of possibly every single king, especially including Solomon, who we don't have any reason to suggest that didn't exactly go on this precise search. Good. Verses 4 through 11. Now Koheleth is going to turn another direction. What did you see here? Do you have any questions here? Yes, sir.
What stood out to me the most was that all the things in this section that Solomon pursues are all the things that we still pursue to this day, which I think are really cool. I mean, thousands of years later, and the things he writes about achievements, houses, vineyards, gardens, parks, fruit, silver, gold, treasure, singers. These are all things that are still things we pursue to this day.
Nothing's changed under the sun. There's no remembrance of those who came before. Who walks around and says that? Nobody. Because it's all here and now. And our professors told us, we're going to change the world. But so did they to the last generation, and then the generations thousands of years before them. And there's still this cycle. The sun is going up and going down. We're going to bed. We're waking up. We're eating. We're drinking. We're working. We're going back to bed. God has made it this way, and it is a miserable task. Yes, yes. Either one.
Kind of to your point, and this is coming from a worldly perspective, and this is something
Perfect.
Jim Carrey, an actor, millions
Yeah.
and millions of dollars. And one of the things that he said in an interview, and this is coming from someone of the world. I mean, I don't know his religious affiliation, but at least from Hollywood and such. Everyone should try to be rich and famous to see that it's not the answer to life. I mean, this is coming from somebody who
Decent.
Has amassed millions and millions of dollars and says that's not the answer. And then something just kind of related to that, and this is speaking to lottery. If you think of people wanting to win the lottery, according to the National Endowment of Financial Education, 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt within a few years.
Stupid.
So
Ridiculous.
just 2 examples.
Very good. Yes, sir.
Just seeing the many times, it's like I got, I had, I did, and it's like all these things that there's I all throughout this. It's like, it ends up being nothing.
Yeah. Yikes. I like the verse 8. I'm sorry, verse 10. All I desired, I took it. I wanted it. So Solomon just basically, mine. Go ahead.
I think this section is with the listing, really emphasizes the point that he achieved these things to the fulfillment. And
To the max.
We can think like, well, no, he wasn't fulfilled because there wasn't enough wisdom. If he would have just had a little bit more. And he even says, my mind thoroughly grasped wisdom, or for pleasure. I took pleasure to the full extreme, or I took my achievements to the end. And so we always say, well, I'm unfulfilled because I didn't reach my goal. And he says, I'm unfulfilled because I did reach my goal.
Thank you.
And there was still nothing.
And that brings us to a question. So, these verses 4 through 11, what did he say was the best part?
Struggles.
The struggle to get it. Ridiculous. Are you kidding me? And actually, that we say the same thing. It's not the destination, it's the journey.
There's people that cry on
Yeah,
the
it's
challenge.
crazy.
Yeah.
What are we doing pursuing this? Just like the writer says, grasping for the wind. You're trying to catch something you can't do, and you're running on the hamster wheel the whole time. Good. Total joke. If there's people out there like Jim Carrey or Elon or the Amazon guy, and they're miserable, how silly to follow in their footsteps or to think they're happy. They're not. They're miserable. Something we'll point out, and the writer is going to point out later, further on in the text, you don't have to have money to love money. So lest you and I think, you do not have to have money to love money. There's a lot of people that don't have hardly any money, and they love that money is all they talk about. And there's people that have a lot of money, and they don't talk about it much. Okay, a lesson here for us. Almost out of time. Didn't get to where we needed to be. So, somebody comes up to Jesus in Luke, the 12th chapter, and he says, Lord, tell my brother to give me my inheritance. Jesus turns to him and says, watch out, be on your guard. Does anybody remember what he says next? A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Jesus literally pulls from Ecclesiastes and says, a man's life, your life, it's not what you can gain under the sun. Watch out. And then he goes on to tell a story about the rich man, a rich man who built barns. I don't think I've ever caught it till recently. But he specifically says the person he was rich. Not he was going to be rich, he was rich. Of course, it's been said many times, there was nothing wrong with him building the barns. It was what he said to himself. If you just get this, your soul will be happy. Nope. You're going to want more barns after that. Was there anything over here? Okay. Such an important lesson. Chapter 2. Well, I guess we'll have to finish this next week. Thank you for your participation.